What's up, everybody? Come on in from the cold as we welcome you into Outpost Unknown. Tonight, we're once again exhuming the X-Files. My name is Matthew, and as always, my fellow researcher into all things supernatural and unknown, Jeremy.
Hey there.
Now, this is an interesting episode, and I don't know, we'll discuss how well each one of us likes it. This one's called Eve. Now, I guess what's most noteworthy about this episode, maybe pop culture-wise, is this is the episode where the band Eve 6 got their name. They were a one-hit wonder back in the 90s. I like it. What's your thoughts on Eve 6? Do you like that band?
I like that one song that came out, but it's worthy of note that one of the funniest Twitter feeds in the world right now is the Eve 6 Twitter feed. It is full of jokes. It is hilarious.
Okay. I did not know that. I'll have to check into that. We're talking episode 11, Eve, directed by Fred Gerber, written by Kenneth Biller and Chris Brancato. Now, if you've never heard of those writers before, it's because this is the first time they've ever written an X-Files episode. Now, somewhat interestingly, they wrote this, wrote the script, wrote the story, turned it in, and then shortly before filming, Glenn Morgan and James Wong rewrote it. So the guys who did Squeeze and Ice and what we'll come to see shortly down the road, Beyond the Sea, rewrote this episode. So we'll discuss whether or not we thought that they did a good job with this. But I'll turn it over to you, Jeremy. Tell us a little bit about Eve. What is this one all about?
Starts with a little girl standing out in a front yard. Some neighbors walking by see her sitting there shivering, near crying. Says, "My daddy's in the backyard and he needed some time to himself." And they go out back. They see Dad sitting on a swing set. They touch him. He's dead. He's got 2 puncture wounds in his neck, and he's got, for some reason, a very gray face. They never really talk about that again. And
I thought it was vampire. When I first saw this as a kid, I'm like, oh man, they're doing vampires.
You got a guy that's been drained of blood. They use the word exsanguinate. He's lost 75% of the blood in his body. And the word vampire never comes up once.
Nope.
And I thought about that because I've seen this episode, and now I'm remembering what was that great Mike Flanagan vampire show? Midnight Mass.
Yeah, Midnight Mass.
I love Midnight Mass, and I love it as unique as it is because none of these people they live in a world where vampires apparently do not exist. That's really the only plausible way a lot of the shit that went down in that show could have. Yeah. So I have to assume that Mike Flanagan's Midnight Mass world happened in the same universe that the X-Files did, because they've just never heard of vampires.
Yeah. Very true.
So they investigate one. They find in Connecticut, I believe, that this dad had been drained, and then all of a sudden, completely across the entire United States, somewhere out in California, the exact same thing happened to another dude on a swing set at the exact same time.
Yeah, and Moulder thinks it's aliens. Again, Moulder goes straight to aliens. He's like, cattle mutilations, Scully. Have you ever heard about cattle mutilations? Which is funny because I remember reading about that stuff when I was a kid. Like, oh yeah, UFOs and aliens are, draining the blood of all these farm animals, and what could they possibly be doing with them? And as I watched this as a kid, I remember as it went on and on and on, thinking, yeah, there's no vampires here. They're going somewhere completely different with this. And I don't think as a kid when I watched this episode, I really understood it. I didn't understand really what they were getting at and trying to say in this. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And it turns out we got 2 little girls who are identical, Tina and Cindy. Creepy little brats.
Write their names down, but well casted. They did a really good job of looking menacing, but man, those kids could not act for shit. Throw that one out there. But so we find out that both of these parents from Connecticut, from California, they had gone down to San Francisco or to a fertility clinic for in vitro fertilization, which is another topical topic now that we mention it. But they find that they had both seen the same doctor, and that this doctor was a part of some Cold War era eugenics program.
The
and that
Litchfield experiments.
the Litchfield experiments, where they were trying to like the Russians, and this is I should not skip over it. He ends up talking to Deep Throat. No idea why he needed to pick or be in this episode, other than to tell us that yes, the Russians were experimenting in eugenics back during the Cold War. They were trying to breed their top scientists with their top athletes to create the perfect soldier. And there was a lot of different places that were trying to do this. You remember Yao Ming? He was part of a Chinese eugenics program where they found the two tallest Chinese people that they could, bred them, and Yao Ming was born. So this is a real thing that happens from time to time.
Yeah, there was. I cannot remember the name of the documentary right now. I'll have to look for it. If I find it, I'll put it in the show notes for this episode. But I watched a documentary not too long ago, maybe about a year ago, about these three identical strangers who found each other, and it turns out that they were all brothers, and it was a fertility clinic that was doing stuff similar to this.
That's
I can't remember. I
nuts.
can't remember the name of it. I'll have to look at it. You might find it interesting just
Oh yeah,
as a
for
thing.
sure.
So I'll
Oh.
find it and then forward the link to it. It was interesting for sure.
And we find out that this gal, Sally something or other. What
Yeah,
was
I
her
didn't
name?
write her name down, but I think it's Sally.
The doctor was basically implanting her own ova into these women because she was using herself as the base. So all of these little girls grew up to eventually look like her as a full blown adult. We find out that a couple or there was a whole lot of them. There was this cute little picture of all of these little girls, like 12 of them sitting on a swing set. It wasn't that bad of a Photoshop,
Yeah, it looked pretty real, honestly.
right? And you find out that there was a program that had Adams or guys. They called Adams. They call all the girls Eves. They gave them Eve plus a number. That's how we get Eve 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, so on and so forth. A couple of those Eves escaped. A lot of them commit suicide because, oh, what is it? I loved
They go
the
psychotic at the age of 20 because they have extra chromosomes, and it
right.
heightens their psychosis in addition to their superpowers, essentially strength and speed and stuff.
Deep Throat points them at a hospital somewhere that has Eve 6 incarcerated in it. And I loved that set. The going down the stairs, the
Yeah.
moaning of the people around it, how everything was caged. It was very what was it? Silence of the Lambs
Yep.
when Jodie Foster was visiting Hannibal Lecter.
They do a good job of setting up the atmosphere of it as well because, like, the guards, like, you have to take in flashlights. Why? Because she freaks out when the lights come on. No one's ever seen her face, that kind of thing. And when they go in there, the actress who played that role was awesome. Like,
It was
she is
really
free.
good.
She's like, oh, I bit out the guy's eyeball, and she does the Hannibal Lecter sort of like thing with
Yeah.
her teeth and everything. And she was so good because she's like the Eve 6 who is, I mean, she's been in there for decades essentially, and they just poke and prod her all the time, and she's like gone totally psychotic.
But what I couldn't stop staring at during that scene was her teeth.
Her yellow teeth.
Oh my god. Like I had a 4K television just a few feet away, and I'm like, oh, it was so gross. So,
Bruce Cool. I mean, she sold that part, man. She was great in that part. So, like, look at my wall, look at my family up there, and they're like, holy shit.
but she gives you all of the backstory. She said
Yep.
that two of her sisters of the same age escaped at some point, and so Mulder kind of figures out, well, okay, so both of these girls had their father murdered across the country from her at the same time. They must be trying to kidnap these younger versions of Eve to bring them back together for some reason or other.
Yeah.
And so I can't even remember why they ended up getting a hold of the girls.
Well, basically, like, Eve is at 7, kidnaps them, and they end up tracking down Eve 7 or whatever because the girls kill her. Remember? So Eve 7
Oh
has the two
yeah, yeah,
girls.
yeah.
Eve 7 kidnaps the two girls and brings them back to some sort of hotel room or whatever. And she's explaining to the girls who you are. So Eve 7 was the Sally, the doctor that essentially that they're looking for. She turns out to be Eve 7, and then the little girls. Eve 7's like, look, you can't go around murdering people. Uh, yeah, I
You gotta take
created you.
pills.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, I created you, but something went wrong when I created you, and now everything that you're doing is way sped up. Because that's when she's mentioned, or somebody mentions that at 20 years, that's when psychosis develops. But the psychosis has already developed in these girls who are like 8 years old or whatever, and they just kill her. These little girls just straight up murder Eve 7. They put digitalis in her
Poison
drink,
in the
and
drink.
she starts like shaking, and yeah, they just kill her. And then Mulder and Scully show up, and everybody shows up, and they do their little sob story. Oh, yeah, there's another person that looks like her that came to try to kill us, and blah 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 blah.
I
Little
remember being
brats.
really disappointed in that death scene because they had been alluding that these girls can speak to each other mentally. They don't quite like early
Yep.
on in the episode, Mulder is talking to one of the girls and he wants it to be aliens so bad. Scully calls him out for
Yeah.
using leading questions, but he uses the word exsanguinate at the FBI headquarters to talk about this dude losing 75% of his. She also, this little girl, uses that word exsanguinate as though she's reading Mulder's mind and telling him exactly what he wants to hear
Yeah.
so that he'll be lost on the trail to her. So she starts shaking at this table and I'm thinking, "Oh, these chicks, they're going to kill this lady with their mind or
Like
something." Like
scanners or something.
yeah, and now we poisoned your soda. We
Yeah.
cultivated it ourselves. Like Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen, but evil.
Yeah.
So I do have a note here from just a bit ago when the second one gets kidnapped. Scully draws her gun first, charges into the house to go confront Eve 7, stop her. Gets a light hip check into a carpet at the top of the stairs and gets knocked out cold. Like she does not take a blow to the head. She just kind of gets run into. I'm like, oh, come on,
Yeah.
Scully, you do better than that.
I actually had a note that was kind of funny from an earlier scene when Scully's in Mulder's room and the phone rings and she picks up and you just hear the two clicks and Mulder starts yelling, "Oh, okay, well, why don't you get out of the room, whatever,"
Yeah,
and because Mulder knows that's Deep Throat's sign or whatever to come talk to him, he's gonna meet him, whatever,
yeah,
and Scully has this great line. She's like, "Mulder, you're rushing me out of the room. You got a girl coming over," and Mulder's like, "What's a girl? Good night."
yeah.
Closes the door. That was so funny.
There's
That
a
was funny.
movie I want to watch. Yeah, he was breezing her out the door like something was coming on Cinemax, and he just needed a
Yeah.
moment.
Well, I don't know which episode it is. Maybe it's one of these later ones where Scully comes in and she's like, "The last time I've seen you this excited, you were reading the adult video news or something like that."
Yep,
It's so funny.
he was way too chipper, kicking her out of the room, and
Yeah.
it was weird, but yeah, I got it. And then immediately afterwards, he meets up with Deep Throat. What is he munching on?
I assumed it was like sunflower seeds, but I couldn't really tell. I
Well,
wasn't exactly sure.
there was an earlier episode where Mulder just scares Scully on a stakeout in a parking lot.
Yeah,
Wasn't he
that was
also
Squeeze.
munching? Yeah, on Squeeze. Wasn't he just walking around munching on sunflower seeds?
I think so because that's one of his things. Like
Oh,
Mulder,
okay,
in
okay,
going into to later seasons, he's always eating sunflower seeds.
okay. I never noticed that before.
Okay. Yeah, that's his thing.
Okay, so jumping back, we get to the girls. They they have the sob story like she was gonna make us drink the Kool-Aid like Jonestown, and everybody was gonna die, like a ritualistic suicide sort of
Yeah.
thing. And they think that they have one of their two suspects. They think the other girl dove out the window, so they're trying to track her down. It was one of the worst delivered lines in the entire episode, and there were a couple of stinkers in there. But the cops are going to take the little girls away, and Mulder's like, "No, no, they could ride with us." And the cops like, "Whatever, all right." And then turns around and walks away. Like, okay, there's no chain of custody, there's no paperwork. Yeah, whatever. Later.
We'll take responsibility for the girls. All right, see ya.
And then they get out on the road. They're doing their little they're psychically talking back and forth in the back seat to each other. Thankfully, they didn't talk a lot because when they do talk, their acting falls apart.
Yeah.
They're like, Mulder, we need to go to the bathroom. So they pull off.
I
at
love
a
he's like,
truck
can't you
stop.
hold it?
Yeah, right. Like why would you make them hold it, Mulder?
Yeah.
Where do you gotta be? And so they pull up to this rest stop. You remember when rest stops used to require keys to go to the bath? Like you had to have
Oh
this
yeah.
legitimacy to approach a counter and ask a human being for a key for a bath.
Yeah. Need to go take
They-
a shit. Can I have the key to the bathroom, please?
They just needed to eyeball you to make sure that you weren't going to go shoot up and die in their fucking bathroom. You know, there was a time
Yeah.
in our past. So they go to the bathroom. They order sodas first because we got to set up something in the future. They order 4 sodas and then leave the lady to go to the bathroom. One of the kids jukes Scully in the bathroom, like goes in and immediately comes back out.
So weird. It's like
And
Scully wouldn't notice that. Come on.
well, you hear one of them, and it's one of those things. You were talking about the previous episode in Ghost where they do the bad voiceover stuff just to explain shit that's happening. This happens all of the time in the episodes, and you got to be paying attention sometimes, but it's almost always bad audio. And they do it in this scene. When she comes out of the bathroom, they're like, Scully, the bathroom door's stuck. And that's how you know that she's going to, help her with that.
That makes sense, I guess.
So she gets a hold of the sodas, and the lady behind the counter say, "Hey, you gotta pay for that." And don't worry, my daddy will pay for it. He said it's okay. She takes these sodas, she pours the poison into the top of them, doesn't even give him a shake. Almost gets caught by Mulder, so she spills a little bit on the table because she was in such a hurry to put it up. They all come out of the bathroom. There's a payment that goes on, but nobody grabs their sodas. And the girls have to remind them to what is it? I ended up writing this down because you know that meme that's been going around, that Golden Corral training video of that dead-eyed gentleman that's cutting the meat. Have you seen this?
I have not. No.
Oh, there's this video of a training video from Golden Corral of how to interact with customers, and you need to sit down and watch it, especially if you've worked at a Golden Corral. But they tell you, how to talk to people, different leading questions, how to talk to kids, how to value your customer. And the most dead-eyed human being you could imagine is standing there with the knife, like, "Have you seen the game today?" Like, not even that upbeat. I can't even. It's just monotone. And so it zooms in on one of these little girls' faces, and it's the exact same face that this fucker is making in this Golden Corral video. And she's like, "Don't forget the drinks." They don't grab the kids' drinks. They just grab Mulder and Scully's. Mulder starts sipping on it, and he's like, "Wow, this is really sweet. You sure this isn't the diet?" "Yeah, I saw her pour it." Okay.
I did like this. Like, I like the idea of this, but I feel like the execution is very flawed because, again, it relies on Mulder and Scully being complete idiots about all of this stuff. Both of them drink the soda and like, "Oh, it's very sweet." Come on, you just came from a crime scene where Scully literally says, they could put this in a soda and it's sweet and they wouldn't even know. Yeah, come on, guys, you're smarter than this. You're smarter than this.
But they also said that out loud because their moronic fucking audience wouldn't realize that you can't just pour poison into stuff. And it comes to one of these bad voiceover lines that happens just a few seconds later. Mulder goes back inside. He sees the little bit that she spilled on the table. He tastes it.
Yeah.
Like he just puts poison straight into his mouth and then goes back outside, realizes that the girls are the killers. Walks up to Scully like, "Hey, Scully, let me open that door for you like a gentleman," and just fucking slaps the drink out of her hand.
Not even like he's not even trying to hide it. It's like he should have said, "Here, let me hold your drink for you," or something. Instead, he makes it so obvious to these little girls that he knows that it causes a problem. They run away.
to be fair to Scully, she really reacted well, like somebody that just got their drink purposefully slapped
Yeah.
out of their hand. Like, what the fuck are you doing? The girls bolt, and then Mulder explains it to her. And if you look at Scully's mouth, I don't think it moves, but she says, "We didn't drink enough to make us sick."
I think I did kind of notice that. I didn't write that down, but now you mention that, I think I was thinking at the time, like, did she actually make her lips move there?
No, I rewinded it, and I'm pretty. If either her mouth is just hanging open and or it's closed, I can't tell, but it does not look like she's saying it. It just sounds like a voiceover because you got to explain to the audience that
Why
they're
they're not
not
going to die? Yeah.
sure. And also, what was the girls' plan at this point? Like, they just poisoned their drinks on the way out to the car. Are they going to get into the car with a couple of adults that are drugged up, get up to highway speeds at 60 miles an hour in a car that we learned in Ghost doesn't have safety features in it? Like, get up to 60 miles an hour, and then these two adults are just going to shake and fucking die and then wreck the
Yeah.
car really, really hard? Like,
One of the problems that you run into when you write characters who are supposed to be so far superiorly intelligent to anyone else, because they establish that Eve 6 is like, my IQ is 267, and that these extra chromosomes make them way smarter than a normal human being. Like, they can think things through and plan all these things that and know what the other ones are doing and things of that nature. But they do so many stupid things. Like, you don't need to spill the poison on the table for Mulder to come back and find. It's like an intelligent person would not do something that stupid. An intelligent person certainly would not try to murder the FBI agents that are taking you to wherever they need to go. It's like the last people that these kids were with were the FBI agents. It's poor writing. It's poor writing all around.
it is. So they juke the adults running away from them. They have this lovely little scene where truckers back in that day, if you would have attacked a little girl that started screaming in a parking lot, yeah, a trucker's probably going to get out of their cab with a gun in hand, and he does. He comes to the
Yep.
rescue of these two little girls. Little girls bolt again,
I love
and
Scully's.
then
We are the cops.
yeah, and just by flashing a badge, it's enough to tell this trucker and his lot lizard that what were you doing in that cab?
Oh
So
God.
the kids juke them, and then all of a sudden this school bus goes driving off, and it's like it's after dark at a fucking truck stop.
Yeah,
There's
I
this
was
load of kids going.
I was thinking that too. It's like, did they just come back from a football game or something? Like, what is going on
Maybe
here?
it
It's
was a
weird.
short bus though,
Yeah.
so I don't know. But uh, it makes us think that Mulder and Scully are going to get in a car, go chase after this bus. These little girls are actually under a tarp in a boat, and then Mulder's smarter than both of you and grabs you both. And so, end of the episode. They both of these kids get locked up in the same little quad that Eve 6 is in this great asylum. They're all staring at each other through the little grate. Eve 6 with her dirty ass teeth just smiling wide through the hole. And then Eve 8 shows up and they just let her down there. And I'm like, all right, this is cool. There's a reunion. Not sure what's going to happen. How did Eve 8 get the sort of credentials it took to get into this place? Because it took Deep Throat putting in a good word for a couple of FBI agents to
Yeah,
get in there.
it's a good point.
So why would they just let her in there? But they all have the four of them meeting. It's like, oh, you knew I was coming? Yeah, we just knew.
Yeah,
That was
it's
it.
it's a cool finale if you don't think about it too hard.
Yeah.
I think they just wanted that pop of, oh, okay, like we could continue this story down the line. And X Files does this a lot, where they did this in Squeeze, for example, right, where they catch him, and then the last shot is he sees the little slit in the door where the food comes through, and he smiles. It's like, okay, he's gonna get out. And so they do that a lot. I like that though. I think that's cool. I think it's a cool way to kind of end episodes and kind of leave it open ended as to what's going to end up happening with all of these like little crazy psycho girls in the future. Overall, I think this episode's okay. I don't hate the episode. There's certainly things that I find kind of goofy and silly with it, but the overall concept and idea of it, I think, is solid. I like the idea that there's these weird cloning experiments going on, and that the U.S. government was involved. And Deep Throat's like, look, we burned all the records of this thing. The only people who know will never admit to anything. And I like this weird little side tangent of the universe where it's not UFOs and monsters, but it's actually like stuff our own government did and created and has caused these weird little problems with these little psycho murderers running around. I like that. I just don't like some of the execution in making Mulder and Scully seem like complete buffoons throughout the course of the thing. What are your thoughts on Eves?
I like the episode, and I really like the older Sally slash Eve 6, 7, and 8 actress. I
Yeah,
thought she
she's
did
good.
really, really well.
She's real good.
I like the eugenics piece of it a lot, and I thought it was a solid episode. And it's nice that it wasn't a monster of the week thing, but yeah, that you could include that the government is not only they have their hands in so many pies of evil
Yeah.
pies that it extends beyond just Mulder's specific interests. So I thought it was a good episode. It was great the first time I saw it, and again, one of those things that feels really, really great when you just sit down, shut your brain off, and enjoy. When you're taking notes on it, and it starts to fall apart, just don't do that. Don't do what I did and pick up a notebook and a pen and really start picking things apart. Just sit down and fucking enjoy.
There used to be these great books I had in high school. The Nitpicker's Guide to the X-Files. I don't know if you ever read any of those, but they would go season by season, and the books were literally just picking out every flaw and every screw up that was in every single X-Files episode all the way through. And I had a conversation with Steve about this last night when we were playing poker. And, in my younger days, I would really hyper focus on all the flaws that I could find in these sorts of things. And nowadays, I'm getting older, and my life is half over, and the last third of it's going to be asleep. So I just don't care so much about the thinking of trying to overthink these things. And even if I do see a lot of flaws in some of this stuff, I'm just like, I can roll with it. I can roll with a lot of this stuff. I don't need to be so nitpicky about all of it. So yeah, I agree. There's some cool stuff in this episode. I certainly don't think it's bad by any means. I don't think it's in the top echelon of the season that we've seen so far, but yeah, perfectly solid, serviceable episode of the X-Files. And then next week, we are going to talk about episode 12, which is titled Fire. So we're going to start seeing some pyrotechnics take place on the show. Will it be good? Will it not be good? We'll find out. Check us out next Friday on Outpost Unknown for another episode of eXhuming the X-Files.